So the issue was, and maybe it's good that we ran into it so that other people can see it, you have to use a pointer. So it was this, you have to use a pointer to a struct, okay, when you put it in. Not the best error message on the on that, but all I did was I Googled the error message and other people have run into this and that's how I figured it out. Okay, so it submitted it and we can see inside of the Datastore viewer, so localhost 8000, there's a Datastore viewer here and it lists everything that you've added. So we can see that I added cat and cat. And you can change it here, which is kind of cool. But so we put it in there, and see the key is this big, huge random string thing. ID is that, and so that's going to be asked it to make one up. In this case, that may not have been the best strategy because we could add another. Cat definition. We'd really like to replace the previous one, not make another cat. But then again, maybe we're making the Urban Dictionary, and then there's like definitions submitted by people, and maybe there's multiple definitions, so maybe that is a good thing. But anyway, that's if you wanted it unique, you'd probably put it in a key. That'd be the easiest way to make it unique, and sort of replace it. Okay, so we successfully put in a word into our data store. Everybody following the putting? Yeah.
What's the difference between key and ID?
That's a good question. So in here. Back to the docs here. Yeah, entity properties keys. Where's the? So when you create a new key, you have these two kinds of. You can have a string ID or an in ID, right? And so you retrieve it. I think you retrieve it based on the. Like that's the ID, but I'm not sure the distinction in here. But you can set it, so I'll show you that. So if we wanted to use a key instead of the incomplete key, context, same word, but now it takes two properties. Where's new key? New key. The string ID and the in ID. And so this is kind of weird where so say I wanted it to be the term and I wanted to just not use the integer ID. That's how you do it. So it's a weird, so the ancestors know. But it's weird where you sort of, you either fill in this argument or this argument, one or the other. So if I don't want the key here, I put in the string and I put a number. If I do want this, I want it to be a string key, I put the string in here, put 0 for the number. It's like either or, because it supports either integer keys or string keys. So let's see what happens if I do this. So all I did was make it instead of an incomplete key, I made it a complete key. Which means we gave it the key. We're not asking App Engine to create one for us. We're setting it, and I'm setting it to the term. Okay, so if I go look in here, yeah, see key name dog. So I think what happens if we change this? Let's see. So I say dog, a real definition. And submit. It changed it, right? Because the key is the unique way you access it. And so we don't use this guy. We use this or the integer, one or the other. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
And so in the other case, it used an integer ID. And so if we wanted to get the cat definition, we have to go give it this ID. And if we want for the string, we have to give the string. But yeah, if we ask it to generate, it's going to give us one of these. And like I said, usually the time when you want to make your own key is when you want that unique property. So for example, say you're saving a profile, a user profile in your database, their email address, their first, last name, that kind of stuff. You'd you'd set the key. Their key would be their email. So that way, if somebody saves it, all you have to do is use the same key, it would replace the contents of the stuff that But if you want to have more than one thing, you don't have that obvious unique key thing, then you would let it generate one. Okay. And so it depends what you're doing. For example, a photo. You would probably make it generate the key. Because what's the key of the photo? I mean, it doesn't have an obvious thing that would be the key, right? There's no unique property. I mean, I guess you could say the name of the file, but that's probably not a good idea. You probably just want to make it create a new one. Everybody following that?
First property there that says key.
Yeah, I think that's like the internal thing it uses or whatever. But these are how we access it, these keys. So we saw both of these. We can either use incomplete key and then it generates one, or we can say new key and we give it. So I gave it term. That's the key I use. So yeah, the key is the combination of the entity type and the identifier, and then also ancestor. Stick all those things together. So right, we put. So how do we do a get? So let's see. We have /words here. I'm going to add a slash here. I'm going to make another function. So we'll call this handle save word. And then we'll have handle show word. And that'll show us the definition of a word. Handle show word. And basically in handle words we will look at the URL. So if the path is like that, then we'll say handle save word res string. Else handle show word res string. So I'm just, and then what I'll do here is I'll add the term as a string. And so I'll get that out of the URL by doing strings dot split slash, and it's going to be the, let's see, 0, 1, 2. So that's the term. Everybody following what I'm doing there? Is that too confusing? So I'm going to get in a URL like I'll have /words, and then I can go to a particular word by going to /words/cat. And I'm trying to get that from the URL. So it's splitting and getting the. Everybody follow that? So this is like the RESTful style URLs. If I post to /words, I'm adding a new word. If I want to see a particular word, I go to /words/ the name of the word, the term. If I wanted to delete a word, I'd say delete this, okay? But we're not going to have delete. So, yeah?
Oh, okay. I was just wondering how words is in path, is the third item in path 2, but it would be words/cat, so the first item would be nothing?
Yeah, the empty string, because it starts with a slash.
Yeah, okay, and then
The second one is the words word, and
okay.
the third is the. And like I said, if we had used that other router, it'd make this a little easier, but I just didn't want to add that in. So to handle show word, we get the term. So I need to get that out of the data store, right? And so I'm going to copy this, okay, and our key. The entity type stays the same, and we use the same term, which is coming from here, which will be cat. And so that should get me the same key. I'm not going to have an entity. Instead, what I'm going to have is var entity is a word, okay? So we're going to fill that. Like, remember scan line and all that? That's how the data store is going to work too. So here's that list of methods. Get. So here's get. It takes a context, a key, and the thing it's going to fill, the destination. And And that's where it's going to go get the data out of the data store and fill it. We saw it with JSON too, with unmarshal. Same basic idea. So think of it like JSON unmarshal, very similar behavior. So it says it loads the entity stored for the key into destination, which must be a struct pointer, or implement that interface. And so we should be able to do that. And it returns an error. So we say error datastore dot get context, the key, and ampersand entity. Okay.
Caleb, since this requires a specific key, it can only yield back one answer. Or we are setting it up to yield back only one answer.
Yeah, this is how you get one thing, and you get it by its key.
Right, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question would be, how do I get multiple?
We'll see that.
Okay.
If you just go to slash, we're going to show all the words. Or actually, we could show it in the slash.
Oh, got it.
And then this question after that would be, how do I conquer the universe?
Well, no. Then my final question is, when we put in a number for an input for Google, is there? I guess there's a specific command to just do a search to throw out all the words that, and of course, there's algorithms to figure out the relation, how that relates to the term you throw into the Google search. But
I'm not following.
well, here it is. When I make a Google search, I'm basically asking for like definitions associated with that search.
Yeah.
So here it's a one-on-one, mano-a-mano. How do you get to? Do they use this technique you're saying with words and cats and all that to throw out all those options that we get when we do a Google search, or?
Kind of. Yeah, it's similar. They have a giant list of all the web pages on the internet, and they have indexed those pages using a sophisticated algorithm. And so there's a ranking associated with, I search for a certain thing, and it has a ranking for all the pages. That used to be a simpler algorithm. It used to be based on how many things have linked to that thing. And so there's a link score associated with each page, and so on and so forth. But no, this is vastly simpler than that.
Oh, sure.
The behavior here is much more well-defined of what you're trying to do. That is a much more loose definition. You know, what is the thing you should see when you search for something is not obvious. Yeah?
So on line 38, word is the kind, is that right?
That's right, the entity kind, yeah.
And so that's almost kind of like a table, like we're looking for all in the
That's
word
right.
table.
If you're familiar with SQL, the entity kind is kind of like a table.
Okay.
Datastore is schemaless, which means you do not define ahead of time
Yeah.
what the table looks like. It's dynamic based on the stuff you pass in. So if I add a field to Word, it won't populate.
Yeah.
You can do that. So you don't have to beforehand think of your whole data structure. So if error is, and if we look in the definition, there's a couple. There is this one, error no such entity. So that would mean we looked for a word we haven't added. It's not in the dictionary. So I think what we want to do in that, well, what should we do if that happens? If I try to go to /word/cat, and there is no cat in the dictionary, what should happen?
Maybe just tell the user that word's
Word
not in the dictionary. Do you want to
Yeah.
add it?
Sure, and so I think I would return not found. That seems like a good, sounds exactly like what I would do, right? And then if error is not nil, that would mean any other kind of error. Then I probably want to show the user that error, like this. So, in general, you know, if HTTP provides you with a mechanism for signaling the user, for example, it has the 404 not found, we should use 404 not found, right? I shouldn't give you a 500 and say not found. I should give you a 404 because your browser's like, oh, not found. And so it sort of already understands that. So this is a general pattern you see, which is the error indicates multiple things. In this case, this kind of error no such entity, is not really like something broke. It just means you look at the word that's not in there. And so we want to handle that a little different than other errors. Okay. But otherwise, everybody understand what we're doing here?
Yeah.
Okay. But if neither of those happens, then I have an entity. I have the word. So.
I guess I do have one question there. So 38, you're you're passing in the term that you want to search for, so that would be like cat,
Yep.
and you're saying new key, but the key already exists, right? So does that just mean go get the key that already exists?
No,
for
no,
the
new
word
key
cat?
means create a key.
But if you're retrieving a word that already exists, doesn't it already have a key?
Yeah, yeah, we're not retrieving the key, we're using the key to retrieve the word. The entity.
It's creating the key object,
Yeah.
the key
Oh.
struct.
Create the
and then
key in
use
Go.
that to
The Go
look
key.
it up.
Okay, and then that's the key that, and then we look it up down there.
With get.
Okay,
That's how we get something out of the data store, is using the key.
So you use that key to modify or something, right? That's,
Yeah, we used it down here to put same exact key. Right? Now we're doing it to get. This is like in Memcache where we used a string key. Same exact idea. This key's a little more complex because it has this idea of the type, the kind, and then it also has this idea of an ancestor. But otherwise, it's the same kind of thing.
I've actually got a question. If
Yeah.
you modify that kind, the word definition, you add something into it, for example, what happens on the data store? Does it add 0 values for all existing entries of that kind?
Yeah, so there's a subtlety there that, and it talks a little bit about it here. Error field mismatches return when the field is loaded into a different type than the one it was stored from. And so I don't know all the details. I think what happens is you're going to get the 0 value. That's what this is saying. But I think we would have to mess around with it to see what exactly happens. Oh, maybe we can do that after we go through all the rest of the examples. In other words, what if I add in a field? What happens to the existing ones? I think it'll just leave it blank, but it might give you that error. So we're just going to print out the response here, and so we'll say make a definition list, return dt. Nobody uses definition lists, but I think they're there. Why not use them, right? So the term is the word. So we say entity dot term. We could just use term too because we know they're the same, but just want to show you what the entity. And this is the definition. And obviously a template would be better here because it would handle, I couldn't cross-site scripting text just for the demo here. Okay. So if I go to /word/cat. Oh, I got 404. Oh, that's right, because it.
You get cat.
Yeah, but do you understand why I got 404 there? Because when
there's a key name.
when I inserted cat, I didn't insert it with the right key. So, but dog should work, right? Ow. I'm gonna keep doing that.
Another reason to use templates.
Yeah. There we go. It's a dog with a definition. And if I change the definition, it'll change here. So the last thing to do is list. So we saw how to put and to get, and we can list too. And so I'm going to make a handle list words. Okay, and we will tack this onto here. So I'll say if rec.method was post, then we will do the save, and if it wasn't post, we will do the list. Okay. But that's not going to leave the. If I did that, there wouldn't be a form, so that's kind of crummy. I guess I could just throw it at the end of the list. So we don't need the if here anymore because I did it up there. And so that's show, and there's lists. So the basic idea is I'm going to list them all, but then at the end I'll have a form where you can add a new one. So we need to list them. To do that, we do use a query. So let's go look at the data store here. Oh, yeah, incidentally, there was also these batch things. and you can give it multiple keys, and we'll get them all in one go. And that's more efficient if you need to get a bunch of things. But otherwise, it works just like get. So, but a query is very different. So, new query. So we say q : equal. Well, I need the context, so first I should do that.
Context is cheap.
Context is cheap. Don't feel afraid to get it. It actually says that in the docs. Context is cheap. So, and so we say datastore.query or new query, and it says it takes a kind. So the kind here is word, right?
Yep.
I'm looking for words. So you do that, and then it's this chained approach to method call. So each of these things returns the query itself. So you say like q dot this dot dot dot, and you keep chaining them together. And so if I want to get all of them, you can say get all right here. But let me show you get first. So I have a q, the query, and let me show you with order. So I can say dot order, and the way to do this in Go, if you want to chain them across lines, is put the dot at the end of the line. And so I want to sort by the term. Okay. So now I have a query, and you can say dot get, or sorry, it's run, to get the iterator. And so the way this is going to work is iterator q dot run, and then you're going to loop. And so you can say dot next. So and next takes this. So what is that? EST interface. What do you think that's going to go in there? Right, the destination, which will be, what's my destination going to be? Var entity is a type of word, so I'm going to put ampersand word. Okay, and it's going to fill that guy with the next one in the list.
And ampersand entity.
Yeah, sorry. And then it returns the key and the error. I don't care so much about the key because I have it inside the entity, the information in the key. So I just need to get the error. And it says that the error done is returned as the error. So if error is equal to data store.done, which is kind of a funny error, but we just break, right? So that means that's it. So in other words, we're getting a query and we're going to step through it one at a time. And then eventually it'll say done, and that's when we break our loop. And if the error wasn't, so else if error not equal nil, so that any other error, we probably want to tell the user that, right? So, and not print out anything. Okay, so once we have our entity, we can add it to a list. So what I'm going to do is make a string, and actually I'll just call it HTML. And I'm just going to add to it. Okay, so I'll use plus equal. And then inside of here, perhaps we're going to build another definition list, so I'll just do like we were doing before, entity.term. Entity.definition. And then down here, I'm just going to do, the list, and then inside of the list, I'll do plus HTML. Okay? Everybody following? So pretty standard way of building HTML. And like I said, normally use a template, but it should work.
Not enough arguments to do that run.
What did I do wrong? Not enough arguments in a row. Oh, it takes a context, right? There we go. And that's how you list. That's how you query. Okay? So everybody follow what we did here? Let me add another definition just so it's clear. Though I think we need to make a change down here. I should redirect. /words, and then 302. So after I insert it, go back to the list. So just put Fresno, a city, shouldn't. What did I do wrong?
Well, you had an error. Did you restart?
Shouldn't have to restart.
Oh, that's right. You don't need to restart.
Maybe I posted it to the wrong place. I thought I put on the forum method post action words. Let's see. And then if I go to words, and it's like this, and if it's post, I say save word. Oh, interesting. That's the router that did that. So that's a tip to remember. If you use a slash in the end of the path for the regular serve mux, and you don't go to something that ends in slash, it redirects you. So I think it ate my. So here we go. Post. So this time it didn't do that. It created it. Interesting that it didn't. So it's in there, but for some reason it's not in here. But there it is. Huh.
The docs for Datastore says claim that it's eventually consistent.
Yeah. I mean, that could be it. But it did eventually show up. Right? So, everybody following what we're doing here? So we can, we get using get and put using put and list using queries. Okay, and these queries support a whole bunch of things. And so I can say, I can use filter. So inside of these docs, they list all the things you can do with a query. And inside the other docs, they have more examples of what you can do. But I'll just show you one filter. And the filter string supports these, it supports all of these operations. So you can say greater, less than, greater than or equal, less than or equal, or equal. So if I want all the definitions for filter, I want only the words that start with C. I might say greater than equal C. And then, sorry, it's if you look in these docs, they, it's the field you want to, where's he at? Usually have an example. Oh, it's in the queries. Right, so you say filter the field name. So the field name here is term. So term greater than or equal to, and then give the value. So the value here is C. And then I can say filter term less than D. Okay, I think that will work. Let's see if that works. Yeah, so it only gave me things that start with C. Because I filtered where the term is greater than C, but less than D. Everybody, that makes sense? So if I want to include dog, how do I do that?
Less than equal.
Less than equal, or less than equal, either way. Well, actually, less than equal wouldn't work. We can see what less than equal does. Yeah, you know why it doesn't work?
It's not just D, it's D.
Yeah, because it's funny that doesn't even show up. But if you imagine like listing everything, the shortest and the earliest word that starts with D is the letter D. And we say greater, less than or equal to, that includes anything less than D and the letter D, but nothing above D. So it's kind of weird. But so we could just say E and take out the less than or equal to. So. Now we've dog. And so you can filter like that. More typical to when you're doing filtering like in this form, not to do words, to do numbers, right? And so you can filter on numbers as well. You know, you can say if we had, for a dictionary, it would make more sense. For something that had a field that had a number in it, you can use numbers. We can also say equal. I can say where term is equal to do cat, right? And that would only give me cat. But you can do a bunch more. Any questions about that? So those are basic queries. Like I said, it should be filling this index YAML file. At least it said it did. But the basic idea is that you just use filters and sort. It's pretty easy. So there are a lot of other things we can do with queries, and maybe we'll look at some more later. But I think that's a basic set. It should be enough for us to get started using the data store. And so the problem here, we want to create a user profile page that requires a login and save profile information in the data store. So what you should be able to do is you log into your site, and you can like have your first name, last name, whatever you want to put as fields, right, as a form. You submit that form, saves it to the data store. If you come back to that page, you see all that information filled out. Okay, so just a basic profile page. Make sense? Okay. So that's the project.